there seems to be a wide gap between the simplistic physical biological understanding of life and the actual experience of life. The physical understanding, the biological understanding says everything you're doing for survival. It is a mechanism that is performing itself. It is happening because you are a part of the physical movement of life. That is what birth is, that's what growing up is, and that's what dying is. Now, this does not explain why the human spirit gets attached to anything and everything. It is not only positive things, beautiful things, meaningful things that we get attached to. We get attached to all kinds of nonsense without making any distinction between whether it's useful for our survival or not, whether it's physically helpful or not. We get attached to things. Now, how do you explain this? Why should there be such deep need for attachment to things that don't add anything to either the physical sustenance of the organism or even in the mental realm? Most of our habits are purely destructive. We have to fight against them, we have to guard against them. Every moment we have to fight to be in the present moment. To not be attached to things is the biggest challenge in life. We can get attached to suffering, pain, pleasure as well. We can get attached to things that destroy our sense of understanding of life, both in the physical plane and in the mental plane. Now, how do we explain this as a biological process? If the human body has taken millions of years in evolving, if it has had so much time to perfect itself, why hasn't it figured out such a simple thing that hold on to habits that are useful, that are necessary, and don't get attached to things that are not useful? But even such a simple thing is not possible for the body to perform or for the mind to perform. Let's say addiction to smoking, addiction to drinking, addiction to drugs. What's the biological use of all these things? Addiction to music, addiction to entertainment, addiction to video games, addiction to sex. What is the physical explanation for addiction? There isn't any. There is no direct physical connection between our addiction and why the body gets attached to that addiction. And yet, we've been trying to solve all our problems with this basic understanding that addiction is physical. If something can be changed physically, you can probably deal with your addiction. Even when we try to solve this problem at the mental realm, we are still referring to the form, we are still referring to the body. That is why we have not been able to get rid of any of these problems. They just keep on multiplying as we move farther and farther away from the basic understanding of life. We get attached to more and more things. Things that are not only not useful, but they are also detrimental to our being, our understanding of life. The easiest way to understand this is to separate the mind and the body. Yes, in essence, at the center of our being, there is no distinction between the mind and the body. But we are not at the center of the being. We are somewhere far away, languishing in the periphery. Existentially, what the mind is, what the body is immaterial. What's more important is to understand where you are. This is the disconnect between all the esoteric, deep spiritual concepts and reality. If you were to read the Vedas, if you were to read the Upanishads, or even the Bible, even the Quran, they talk about something that is perfect, a state or a place that you have to go to. But they do not address the fundamental problem of where you are now. Without knowing where you are, how can you imagine of going somewhere? If you are already at the center of your being, fully aligned with your mind, with your body, with the present moment, then you will have no problem whatsoever with getting attached to things. You can clearly see the structures of attachment, and when they are getting stronger, when you can see that these things are gaining control over your mind and body, you will know how to detach from them. If you can do this, then where is emotional suffering? Where is attachment to the body? Where is attachment to life? Where is attachment to death? And if there is no attachment, where is the struggle to liberate yourself? It is the attachment that is the root of all the problems. It's because you are sticky. Wherever you go, things stick to you. You have to come back and try to get rid of them. Imagine if you were not sticky. If things came, touched you, and simply dropped off. How beautiful life would be. How wonderful the experience of life would be. What is the fundamental problem in navigating the landscape of life? It's because our entire body is covered in glue. One walk into the world and you come back, you pick up all kinds of things. You call them your habits, you call them your purpose, you call them your rights, your activism, your belief system, your way of life. But in actuality, these are all your attachments. It's because you could not experience life with a sense of detachment, you became a part of its suffering. Because you see yourself as a part of that suffering has become attached to you. Now you want to try and solve that problem. In actuality, can you solve the problem? No. The only problem you can solve is the problem of your life. That is why Buddha said, why are you bothered about the suffering on the outside? First try and understand, why are you acknowledging this suffering? This is very fundamental to a spiritual way of life. At the physical level, you don't ask this question. You don't ask, why am I experiencing this suffering? You just see suffering as a reality and you want to do whatever you can to ease that suffering. But you have to go one step further and see, why am I even recognizing this suffering? And why am I getting attached to this suffering? Why can't I simply observe and drop it? Why do I feel a sense of guilt when I try to ignore my problems? When I try not to interfere with the processes of life happening on the outside, who is creating this sense of guilt inside me? Who's wanting me to be a savior? Who's wanting me to help others? Because I have one moment. In one moment, either I can live or I can try and do something on the outside. Your desire to help, your desire to ease suffering is your attachment. Your attachment to your thoughts and your attachment to your action. Now that is the foundation of suffering. And also the root of your moving away from the present moment. What draws you away from the present moment? If you pay close attention, you will see it's always something emotional, something that moves you. It's not inanimate physical processes of life that move you away from the present moment. It's not your breathing. It's not your seeing or hearing. It's not your senses by themselves that take you away from the present moment. It is the story that is being weaved inside your mind. The story of you as a savior. The story of compassion. The story of love. The story of being recognized by those around you. The story of that desire to be good, to be identified as someone, as something. This is your story. It's all happening in your mind. In actuality, things that happen in life don't create attachment. Are you attached to your breathing? Are you attached to your digestion process? Bodily processes that are existential, that are basic, that are biological, are not addictions. They are natural processes. See where attachment stems from. See the root of your addiction. The root of your addiction is your mind. It's not your body. You have to completely separate your mind and body and say, where you are now, your mind and body are two completely different things. Two different beings altogether. If you go into spiritual scriptures or religious scriptures, they try to bring these two together. But in you, it is not together. It takes great effort. It takes deep understanding. It takes practice. It takes daily conscious awareness of the mind and the body to bring them together in the present moment. It is meditation, it is mindfulness that aligns your mind and body together. Now, without these, you can be sure that every moment you are either a body or a mind. You're never both. That is why your mind can pick up habits, can get attached to things that are detrimental to the body because it is not even aware of the body. You keep going back and forth between the mind and the body, so there is someone, the third entity, the self, that is aware of both these things. Once in a while, it wakes up and says, what is this habit? This is not useful for the body. This is not helpful. This is not helping me to be in the present moment. Once in a while. But rest of the time, your mind is getting attached to things on its own without any regard to the body. That is why we can get entangled in all kinds of nonsense. because it is the realm of the mind. Inside the mind, there is no body. Quite literally, there is nobody there. Mind is a swirling whirlpool of activities. There is no one governing the mind.